Welcome to this video where I'm going to be talking about the Canon 1DX and whether or not it's a good camera for 2025. In 2025 I have decided to take photography a bit more seriously and started my own photography business, and I figured I would have to have something else than my A6400, which I'm filming this on, because I needed something more photo-centric, and I'm not really planning on doing much video work. I'm planning on doing portraits, newborn photography, and those kind of things. And I was basically faced with a kind of a dilemma. Do I go for the latest and greatest, and not being able to afford too much equipment because my budget is limited, or do I go for what was really good 10, 12, 15 years ago and have the money to buy much more stuff, much more lenses, maybe a backup camera? And I went for the latter option. I went for the Canon 1DX, which was my dream camera at some point. Probably like many of you guys who are, and girls who are watching this video. If you're into cameras and you have been for a long time, this camera has probably been on your radar some day. This used to be the top of the line. This was the flagship model until about maybe something like 10 years ago. And it has a lot of great features. It is a professional camera. It's built like an absolute tank. And it used to have a good burst rate, and yeah, this was basically the camera of choice for sports photographers, photojournalists, anyone who needed a robust camera with a good autofocus system. And I used to have a 1D Mark II like 15 years ago, and I remember really liking the form factor. I have big hands, so I really like the what should I say, something to hold on to, and the vertical grip included. So the size was a plus for me. I've never been into compact cameras. When something is very light and compact, I see that more as a negative than a positive, because for me it's just less stable and I don't have a problem handling big cameras with my hands. But this is not a video where I'm gonna be praising this camera. Like you're going to see people in a lot of these, is this a good camera for the year of XXX video. Because this camera is old, and DSLRs are showing their age compared to mirrorless cameras when it comes to, what should I say, high performance shooting. What I realized when going back to this camera after doing some photos on my A6400 is that autofocus technology has really come a long way. This camera doesn't have any intelligent features when it comes to autofocus. There's a lot of settings for tracking that are meant for, you know, if you do wildlife sports photography. So you can tweak it to a certain degree, but still, this camera doesn't know what to focus on. This camera just guesses. And the guessing is pretty good. It's impressive, but it's not good enough. I'm used to a low keeper rate when it comes to DSLR cameras, because you're just gonna have to realize that if you're photographing moving subjects, a lot of your photos are going to be out of focus. And when it also comes to autofocus technology, the newer cameras that have eye autofocusing, both animal and human, they really give you an unfair advantage. And that was something I wasn't really prepared for when I had gotten used to the eye autofocus on the Sony A6400, which is incredibly good. It nails the focus just about every time. Going back to this, all of a sudden I was choosing focus points, maneuvering the focus points around, putting the focus point just on the eye, and it's a hard time you're gonna have a hard time nailing the focus on every shot, especially when you're working with super low depth of field, high aperture lenses. And that's a problem, because if you're going to kind of compete in the modern day photography market when it comes to shooting good portrait images, you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage with a camera like this. Sure, you can get really good at moving the focus point around and hitting the focus, but it just takes so much energy. It takes so much of my focus, which I could be using to compose the image and do other stuff and just let the autofocus work for me. It kind of feels like driving a stick shift car on a really high performance racetrack. It just surprised me how hard it was and how spoiled we are with mirrorless technology. When it comes to all the other things, resolution, handling, the physical side of it, if you can manage the weight and size, of course, the lens selection, which is really good. This is a great camera, and I love using it. I do have a degree of nostalgia using it, and just looking through the viewfinder, it just has this huge image in the viewfinder, which just looks awesome. Of course, that doesn't matter for the actual photo, but just the act of using this camera feels really good. Again, it's like driving a good old car with a stick shift. You might really like using it, you might enjoy the process, but the results are not as good. And that is why I would say, when asked if this is a good camera for 2025, if you're a hobbyist and you're taking photos for yourself, whether, I don't care if it's portraits or landscapes or wildlife or sports, if you're doing it for yourself, then go ahead. It's a great camera, it's really fun to use. If you're going to do paid stuff and you have clients that expect great things, I don't know if this really is the best camera right now. Sure, you're getting a lot for the money, but this is old technology and I would not recommend this. I would recommend you go for something like a Sony a6400 or a Canon R6, something that's mirrorless, something that will give you an easier time and will help you take better images. I know this video is probably gonna piss some people off, but I do not recommend this camera for 2025. Even though my channel is called Smart DSLR, this compromise of a camera purchase was not the best for me, and I am probably going to sell this and just focus on building up my a6400, buying more lenses for that, and a cage and a grip or something, just to make the camera a little bit bigger, easier to hold for me. And the new lenses for the Sony lineup that's coming out from Viltrox and TD Artisans, there's just too much good and budget stuff. Sure, on a Canon EF system you have access to an incredible lens lineup, but a lot of these lenses are very old and don't perform very well. This one is an exception, of course, the 70-200 f4. This is a really good lens. This is the first version. It's still tack sharp at f4. It's a really good lens, but I digress. Anyways, let's argue in the comment section. And this camera is probably going on sale. And I'll see you in the next video.